Hey everyone, welcome back to Blurred Lines, Crime, Conspiracy, and the Truth Behind the Gossip. I'm your host, Ashtootrippy. We are going to get into a deep dive today. Before we get into that, I just want to let you guys know I appreciate each and every one of you. Be sure you're subscribed with your notifications on to know when I drop a brand new episode. And remember that our updates podcast is every other week and our deep dives are supposed to be every Friday. However, I have procrastinated a little bit and I haven't really been focused on kind of nailing down a story, I guess you can say. I kind of just go with whatever interests me, and today this case totally sent me into a whole week long deep dive of this whole entire case. I listened to podcasts, I watched documentaries, I listened to interviews, and I started yesterday looking at the home videos and pictures to kind of familiarize myself with who this person was. But buckle up, we are going to be talking about the mysterious disappearance and family secrets in the life and disappearance of Alissa Turney. I hope you guys are excited for this today. Before I get into everything, I want to send a shout out to Alissa Turney's sister, Sarah Turney. I got all of my information directly from her, not only her podcast, Voices for Justice, where she not only goes over her sister's story of her being missing and not yet found at all, but she also goes over a lot of other missing people that have gone missing under mysterious circumstances or very obvious circumstances, as you may hear soon. So I want to send a huge shout out to her. I had started watching her TikToks and I had been procrastinating listening to her podcast. And last week I was like, you know what? That's what I'm going to listen to. A lot of my podcasts I'm all caught up on. And if you guys listen to podcasts, you guys understand how that goes. Started listening to it and started remembering, because in the beginning when I started watching her videos, I was like, I really don't remember this, but I started remembering this case and I started deep diving. I listened to all the podcasts. Like I said, I've watched all the videos and I've done all that, and there's a lot of pieces to this case, but we're going to break it down to the most important pieces that I think that need to be known, and you guys could of course let me know what you guys think at the end of this. Let's get a little bit into this. I'm going to read you just a little bit of background into this case and then we'll get a little bit more into it, okay? So Alissa Marie Turney of Phoenix, Arizona was born in 1984 to her parents Barbara Farner and Stephen Stram. Alissa's parents divorced when she was 3 years old, and her mother, Barbara, married a man named Michael Turney. Michael, who had 3 children from a previous relationship, adopted Alissa and her older brother, John. Shortly after they married, Michael and Barbara had a child of their own, Sarah. Barbara died of cancer when Alissa was 9 years old, leaving Michael to raise all 6 children as a single parent. Their mother died of lung cancer. That was a traumatic thing for the whole family, I think a lot of people that I watched doing this story didn't really touch on too much of like that whole factor of losing, a parent and just being devastated by it. I think it was kind of lost in between. But I think there was also the way they were living their lives was a little bit chaotic, considering that, the father was, and we'll get into it a little bit more, but there was a lot more to do with how Michael Turney was affecting people around the whole entire family. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. At the time of Alissa's disappearance, she lived with her adoptive father, Michael Turney, and her half-sister, Sarah Turney, which in all the documentaries and podcasts that Sarah does, she calls her sister. It's not half-sister, half-sibling. She is her sister. That's how these kids were raised, all of them, even the brothers. They were all raised that they all were family. So essentially, since Michael ended up adopting Barbara's 2 children, they all had the same last name. Michael had 3 sons of his own that were a little bit older. They all just thought of each other as family. The other children were adults and no longer lived at the home. She worked at a fast food restaurant, Jack in the Box, and had a boyfriend. So we'll get into that in a little bit because there's an infamous video out there. We'll talk about that dad a little bit, okay? Now, a couple things I just want everybody to be aware of with this story is Michael Turney, Alissa's stepfather, was very weird. I'm gonna put that. He gave weird vibes. He not only had Alissa and numerous other people in Alissa's life sign contracts for certain things. He would monitor her. So this was after her mom's death. He monitored her constantly. He not only monitored her phone calls and listened to them, he also would cameras all throughout the house, including in her bedroom in the vent, and listening devices and things like that. And Michael Turney claimed that Alissa had a learning disability, and he pushed it and stated it to everybody and anyone. It didn't matter if they listened or not. He told everyone that she had a learning disability and that she was way too gullible and that she was not to basically communicate with anyone because of those factors. And he pushed it a lot. Like he's talked to the school. There was an altercation with, I guess, a teacher or something about, and he called the school and like emphasized. He even went as far as to contact CPS and tell them, my daughter, you may get a call because my daughter's told people that I have raped her. And I want you guys to know that that didn't happen. She is just a troubled child. It's crazy. So he would also put signs and dry erase boards with instructions to remember. She was very embarrassed about this. Now we have to remember that during this time that this is taking place, this is from the time that Alissa is, from the time her mother dies, essentially. So once her mother passes away at the age of 9, from 9 to until she went missing when she was 17 years old, she dealt with this. Her father created this narrative that she was basic dumb. She needed instructions because she would forget things. And it's funny because he's the only one in her immediate life that has ever mentioned that she has any kind of learning disability. She was a teenager. She was in high school. Of course, she didn't enjoy school. That wasn't something she liked. Very few kids do. Her sister Sarah says that she was one of those kids, and her father would use Sarah helping Alissa with projects as, see, you're helping her with projects. She's not as smart as you guys think, and trying to push this narrative. He also wanted to make it seem like Alissa was untrustworthy and a bad kid. He would always say, oh, she smoked pot and she drank. But again, this was during a time period that Alissa was a teenager. She was a teenager in the later 90s. And that was not a weird thing. Now, when I mention this, I want you guys to put in perspective. Once Sarah, her sister, got a little bit older, her father would actually go as far as to supply Sarah, Alissa's sister, little sister, and his biological child with alcohol, weed, pills, anything they wanted to do. Go as far as even putting a mini fridge in Sarah's bedroom so he can buy them beer. When you put it in a perspective that how different Alissa was treated from all the other people is insane. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to kind of touch on here. Throughout Alissa, there's a few instances we need to talk about. So there is a home video, and I am going to link as much as possible in the show notes, so be sure to always check those show notes. There is a home video of basically Sarah. She's a younger child, and I believe Alissa's around 10 or 11 in this video, and she basically is, Sarah has the camera, her dad's telling her turn it off, and she's like, no, I don't want to. It looks like they're maybe fishing or camping, and Alissa is a little bit down the ways, and she points the camera at her, and she said, and basically out of nowhere, Alissa tells her, hey Sarah, dad's a pervert. Michael Turney turns to Sarah, grabs the camera, and notices that it was recording the whole time. And what does he do as a quote unquote loving father, sarcastically? He proceeds to keep the camera on, and he zooms in on Alissa Turney, his stepdaughter, adoptive stepdaughter, tells her, oh, stupid, Alissa, I'm stupid, and basically is mocking her and throws a stick at her. Again, she's a little bit farther down the road, so essentially you can tell he gets very irritated by this comment. Now, since we're talking about videos and stuff like that, I want to bring up this portion that really struck me. Now, this is in Sarah Turney's podcast. Again, her podcast is called Voices for Justice, and she talks in length about everybody that was involved in their family and things that were said about her stepfather, Michael Turney, or her father, Michael Turney. So one of the more disturbing things is him recording. So she explains how he had numerous cameras. A lot of times people would notice them because they would see the red light. And even some of Alyssa's friends would like walk in the house and they'd be like, wait, is your dad recording right now? We're really creeped out about it. We know that Michael had caught on film or on camera Alissa not only just doing her mundane things and talking with her friends, but also of her taking a boy home, kissing him. That was a whole issue. And not only that, is he recorded a lot of things. Now, during a period of time, now this is something that's not talked about very often, but I just wanted to talk about it because I feel like it is important in this whole story of things. Alissa told friends a lot that friends she trusted, of course. She would tell them that she felt like she was drugged and she would fall asleep and she'd actually wake up being tied to a chair or tied to her bed and her dad would be over her. So people they thought it was creepy and they got that vibe from Michael Turney himself, but a lot of people never really said anything about it. Alissa also, after their mother had passed away, Michael Turney had started talking to one of Alyssa's teachers when she was around that age of 10 to 12. And she moved in with them briefly. And during that time, Alissa had said to the teacher that she had sex with her dad. And the teacher was like, wait, what? And they brushed it off, and Michael Turney brushed it off in saying that, again, going with that narrative that she's not, the smartest in the bunch and that she's very troubled. She just lost her mom and she's basically using the excuse that she's trying to protect her dad and is jealous in a way. They just took that how it was. The teacher is very remorseful that she never said anything about it, but there's a lot of people that believe that Michael Turney was in fact abusing Alissa at that time. Now, along with this, there was other tapes that were found in the home. Now, as I had stated, shortly after their mother had died, Barbara, Michael had one of his, I guess, nephews live with them. I'm not too sure about that, so don't quote me. But he had a nephew move in. I believe it was either a nephew or a friend, not 100% sure. But he needed help basically taking care of the girls because at this time he was still working. And during his stay there, he had admitted to seeing a videotape. And he describes a time where he got off work early, he went to the house, and he was getting ready to watch a movie. And he said that he put on a movie thinking that it was, one of the popular movies at the time. And it played a little bit of the movie and then it cut out to, it was Alissa sitting on the couch and she was kind of more or less dazed. And it was basically, what you could imagine it is. And then he says that as that is kind of fading out, it goes back to the movie, and then there is another girl that is laid on the couch and Michael is there as well. These tapes were never recovered. Seeing as somebody, reputable saw him, after he saw those tapes, he gave Michael his key and left. And again, this is another person that's very remorseful into not porting it to the cops or anything like that. It's very interesting to hear things like that, even though it's not something that can be verified in any way. Very concerning concerning because, again, he did record everything. It's also very concerning that, including the fact that he was also stalking her. When she did get a job at Jack in the Box, she was very proud of it, and she would describe to her friends that her dad would sit outside and videotape her, just sit outside and watch her. And there is a video also available online. If you guys ever want to see any of these videos, you can go to Sarah Turney's page, and I'll try to link them all in the show notes down below. But basically, there's this one when she was working at Jack in the Box. She comes out, and this was in December of 2000, right before she went missing, and she says, "Dad, you almost got me fired." Like, they were getting mad, and they said he's not allowed to do that. Basically, he was sitting across from the restaurant videotaping not only her, but the whole restaurant and all the employees, who are all probably minors, which technically is not. Now, one thing to remember about Michael Turney is he believes all of his lies, and he thinks that people are after him. He had planned a lot of different plans, and we'll get into that also just briefly in a little bit. I want this mainly to be about Alissa, but there is parts of this story that have to be about Michael for you to understand where he is now, and we'll get into that. He was a person that sued a lot of people, filed a lot of paperwork and lawsuits and all this stuff. He thought people were after him to do with his union of electric workers. It's humorous to me. I know this whole story is not funny, but the way this man thinks is delusional and humorous, in my opinion. Let's get into the disappearance a little bit here. So on May 17th of 2001, that was the last day of Alissa's junior year at Paradise Valley High School, according to her stepfather. He dropped her off in the morning as usual, then picked her up around lunchtime. Again, this is the last day of high school, her junior year pretty much. So next year she would be a senior. Allegedly, they had an argument and she stormed off in the home. Later, he and Sarah found a note in her room written by Alissa claiming that she was running away to California. However, she had left her cell phone and other personal items behind that night, and Alissa had plans to go to a party but did not ever attend. Basically, when she went missing, the whole scenario of her going missing, her last day, the last people that seen her, she left school early because she had explained to her friends that her dad was picking her up early. And in explaining that to her friends, she basically told them bye, including her boyfriend. She popped into his shop class and said, "Hey, I'm leaving early. I'll see you later tonight," because there was going to be a party for the end of the year and the people that were graduating, and she had planned to attend. It's very weird to say that this all happened when she was planning to attend an important party for the end of her junior year. That was very weird. Now, also, I was thinking while I was listening to this, is it's also very weird that her dad picked her up during lunchtime. It's not weird for a parent to do that, but it's weird because, one, it was the last day, and two, we all know that Michael Turney did not want Alissa to be going to parties, to be doing all this stuff, and he actually felt like her boyfriend was too controlling and didn't even want her to have a boyfriend. But everybody that was talked to said that this was not true. Yes, they had arguments like a normal, teenage relationship, but they were very close. And actually, there was a recording that her dad had kept of, it was like the day before, a couple days before she went missing, and they're having this normal teenage conversation, basically saying, "I love you, no, I love you, no, you hang up first, no, you hang up." You know what those teenage lovers do when you're new and in love and it's new, And so that also says a lot that she wouldn't say that. Wouldn't do that, sorry. A lot of times when kids do go missing, they do let people know, especially in these circumstances, considering that Alissa told people about things that were happening to her very bluntly and very obviously. Now, I want to read the note that she left behind, and it has been proven that this note was in her handwriting. It says, "Dad and Sarah, when you dropped me off at school today, I decided that I really am going to California. Sarah, you said you didn't want me around. Look, you got it. I'm done! Exclamation point. That's why I saved my money. Dad, I took $300 from you. and signed it Alissa. Couple things I want to go over in this note. It has been proven to be her handwriting, but the things that are written say that it was probably not written on May 17th of 2021, as Alissa was getting very frustrated with her father even previous to her going missing. So she may have written this. She had talked to people about going to California because she did have an aunt that lived in California and she wanted to possibly go and stay with her. So this may have been something that she decided against, and maybe this was found by Michael and he left it there. So this is one of the theories. Sarah does state that her and her sister Alissa did fight like sisters, which is normal. It's not anything abnormal, but Alissa doesn't believe that this was something that would have been put in this note at this time. It's interesting to know that how she says she saved money. To note that since she got a paycheck right before she went missing or right after she went missing, not too sure, she had about $1,800, and if that puts it in perspective, that's quite a bit of money in the early 2000s. And to say that she saved her money but yet took $300 from her dad is kind of weird, because I don't think at the time this note was written, she actually saved a lot of money. She was probably thinking of taking money from her father because she may, at that time, in the previous weeks or months, did not have that much money saved up. Now, the most interesting thing about this note is her sister Sarah says that her sister never signed with a capital A. And the way that Sarah wrote was kind of like in a bubble form. A lot of teenagers write like this. It's not abnormal. But the way she wrote her name was with a lowercase large a. And she would never use a uppercase A when signing her name. And in this letter, she does use an uppercase A. Now, this is from the police department report, and it says the signature is Alissa's attempt to individualize herself. A competing hypothesis posits that she signed the letter at a different time than when she wrote the letter. So this is from the police department. Now, Sarah doesn't believe she signed the letter. It was something she was doing without somebody telling her. The letter was signed at a different time than when the letter was originally written. Again, stating that it was most likely found by Michael, and Michael, in my opinion, could have had her sign this. So it's very telling. Now, on May 24th of 2021, Michael Turney claimed that he received a phone call from California number where Alissa swore at him before hanging up. This call has never been proven. It could have been from anyone. It was tracked down, actually. Michael Turney sued the phone company to get the records for the call, and it was a public phone, so anybody could have called. Surprisingly, this was one call he didn't record. That's very odd. So I don't think the call was anything. I think it was his attempt to make people think that he was alive, or she was alive, I'm sorry. And then in 2008, Turney claimed that Alissa was killed by two quote-unquote assassins from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and she was buried in Desert Center, California. This is another narrative that he brings up and says that these are the people that are against him and that would harm Alissa. But when you put that in perspective, Alissa was his adoptive daughter. Sarah was his real daughter. If somebody really wanted to hurt him, why go after Alissa and not Sarah? It's a question I have been asking. They have never searched any of these places for Alissa, and that's actually something that Sarah is trying to advocate for her sister for. I'm going to post all of her stuff so you can find I didn't look in to see if she's trying to just gain attention so they can start doing that, or if she has like a petition or something you guys can sign. online, but I'll look into it and everything will be linked into the show notes down below. But this was his narrative that he believed throughout this investigation, and it was very weird. There has never been any body found. I want to just reiterate that. And I also want to kind of put this spotlight on Michael a little bit. There were allegations of sexual assault at the age of 9, but there was also allegations from family members of not only his ex-wife, but also from his wife Barbara, who is Alissa's mother, that from her family members, her sisters, her siblings, that Michael did try to sleep with them on many occasions, and in some cases did drug them and most likely rape them. So this man has a history of people that have put claims on him, but were too scared to actually come out and talk against him. That kind of, brings up that whole thing of, oh, this guy's a little weird. Now, Michael has always denied any molestation, states that basically all the time, every time it's stated or every time it's said by Alissa, states that, basically she's too dumb. She's not there. She can't speak for herself. She's troubled. She's on drugs. This is affecting her. All of that stuff. So it's crazy. Turney filed a missing persons report on May 17th of 2001, but in the immediate days following Alissa's disappearance, police did not suspect play, and no investigation took place until later on. So I believe it was years later. I believe in 2008, may have been sooner than that, 2006 possibly as well, that they opened an official case for her. But basically he reported her as a runaway missing person, which is different than reporting somebody as just a missing person. If you report somebody as a runaway, they're not gonna look, because in their mind they think they're gonna come back, or the family's just gonna go find them. They're somewhere that they know of. When you file for just a missing person, it's not as easy, because a missing person, especially considering she was underage, they would have probably conducted a search for her. Now, the reason for Michael doing this, in my opinion, is because he didn't want anybody looking for her while he got rid of whatever he did to her. Again, that's my opinion, but that's just, he was is a smart enough man to realize that if he did that, it would benefit him in the end, okay? Now, in 2006, a self-proclaimed serial killer, Thomas Albert Heimer, told a prison guard that he had killed Alissa, and he had been in prison since 2003 for an unrelated murder. However, when Phoenix police questioned Heimer, they ultimately determined that he had not had any contact with Alissa, and he admitted he might have confessed with a different victim. So it's never been proven for that, and that's kind of when things started coming up, because he did know a lot of details, but they don't know. There was no evidence that directly pointed to it being Alissa. In 2008, the case was reopened. In December 2008, detectives told Sarah that her father was their main suspect. Simultaneously, authorities were raiding the Turney home, where they seized more than 24 improvised explosive devices, 19 firearms, 2 homemade silencers, and a van full of gasoline. They also found a manifesto outlining his plans for a rampage against the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers building in Phoenix. Michael Turney was arrested, prosecuted, and sentenced to 10 years in jail, and he was released on those charges in August of 2017. They raided the home, and you can listen to this on Alissa Turney's podcast, which I'm going to add here as well as a recommended listen, because I feel like everybody should listen to this. And it was raided for, they were trying to find evidence in Alissa's disappearance, but they ended up finding all of this other stuff, including a manifesto that was called A Man, a Martyr, or something like that, and it outlines a lot of things, including the possible admission to killing Alissa and who did it, and him killing the people that did it, and all of this other stuff. He's always stated that it was fictionalized. He's never said that any of it was true. It was just something he did. It was a hobby, and he liked doing that, and he basically wrote it all off. It was absolutely horrible. So where we're closer at with this case, just to kind of can get into a little bit of other things. In August of 2020, Michael Turney was arrested in Mesa, Arizona, indicted and charged by a Maricopa County grand jury on second-degree murder charges in the death of Alissa. Now, all the charges against Michael Turney were dismissed in July of 2023, and to this day, Alissa's body has not yet been found. And as I stated, her sister, Sarah Turney, has been working extremely hard in not only trying to find her sister's body, because she stated that that's not really even the biggest thing for her. She wants justice. She wants all of the evidence to be heard and seen, and she wants to be able to, test and do searches of areas that have been mentioned by other people, including her father. She believes that finding her sister's remains may give a little bit of the tools that are needed to locate who exactly did this. I don't know if there is a lot of circumstances that lead up to possibly Michael doing this, and I think that the motive is simply he never wanted people to find out what exactly he was doing with Alissa. He never wanted that truth out there, and you can tell in the home videos that are watched, when Alissa was younger, she was real timid, and she started towards those last couple years, she started being herself. She started finding herself, and I think Michael was super scared of what was going to come out of her finding herself and her, finding that confidence without being around her father. Now, it's important to note that Michael is free today, and he has attacked his daughter, his biological daughter, Sarah Turney, and stated that, gone after her for defamation and speaking about all of this in her podcast and on her, not only on her YouTube channel, but also over on her TikTok account. Again, I'll link all of that down below. But he's been doing this. Alissa Turney at this time would be in her 40s. Sarah Turney now is 36 years old. She's as old as me. And I think that's a lot of why I connected with this case on a level, because it was shocking to know that all of these people know all this information about Michael, and he's just out here suing people for defamation and creating these false narratives for people and saying that he's the only one that's helping in this case now, when he's not. There were 2020 episodes that are not credible. They're basically victim blaming not only Sarah but Alissa as well, and putting them in a spotlight that I feel is just not very good. I tried to watch it and I couldn't. If you watch videos of Michael Turney, you get the vibe. You know the vibe. How maniacal he looks. You know what I mean? So it's crazy that people believe him, because he does have supporters, believe it or not. Alyssa's never been found, and I think that's the biggest thing. And her sister Sarah has basically become a viral sensation, and she's doing all she needs to for her sister, and we're gonna continue spreading this. And like I said at the beginning of this episode, I reached out to Sarah. I let her know that I'm making this podcast for her sister and to bring awareness to both of their stories. And if she gets back to me, I'll let you guys know. That's what I have for this mysterious disappearance of Alissa Turney and the family secrets that were kept. If anybody has any information, I highly recommend that you reach out to Sarah Turney and you let her know, or the Phoenix, Arizona Police Department. This is still something that, as I've been hearing, is very important to the authorities, but unfortunately Michael cannot be charged again with the murder unless they find some kind of evidence that links him indefinitely. Kind of puts the nail in the coffin, per se. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Share it with some friends. Be sure you guys are subscribed wherever you're listening. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, be sure you're subscribed, turn on those notifications, and I will link everything in the show notes below. If you guys have any case suggestions or want to hear me talk about something, definitely shoot me an email, ashtootrippy@gmail.com. Be sure you're following our TikTok, Blurred Lines Podcast on TikTok, and be sure you guys are subscribed everywhere you're listening again. And thank you guys so much for the support and the love. I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, we'll talk about it. Bye, guys.